First Contact's price. Captain Elena Santos stood at the bridge of the ESS Pathfinder, Earth's first faster-than-light vessel, as it emerged from the quantum fold near the edges of what their telescopes had identified as an inhabited star system. The bridge crew held their breath as the sensors painted a picture of the civilization before them. Massive orbital structures encircled the system's planets. Energy signatures beyond anything humanity had achieved flickered between worlds, and ships of impossible configurations danced through space like schools of fish in a cosmic ocean. All readings stable, Captain. Lieutenant Chen reported from his station, his voice tight with anticipation. We're being scanned by multiple sources. Their technology. It's unlike anything we've ever seen. Elena straightened her uniform, a habit from 15 years of service that surfaced whenever anxiety threatened to overcome her training. This was humanity's moment. First contact with an advanced civilization. The weight of 4 billion years of evolution, of countless generations dreaming of this moment, pressed down on her shoulders. Open all frequencies, standard greeting package as planned, she ordered, her voice steady despite the thundering of her heart. The message they'd prepared contained everything. Mathematics, science, art, music, the essence of humanity encoded in radio waves and light. The response came faster than anyone expected. A holographic display materialized in the center of the bridge, showing a being that seemed to be made of crystalline structures and flowing energy. Its voice came through their speakers in perfect English, a feat that should have been impossible. Vessel of biological origin, you have entered the territory of the Galactic Concordat. Your presence has been noted and analyzed. Maintain your position for quarantine procedures. Elena stepped forward. This is Captain Elena Santos of the Earth ship Pathfinder. We come in peace, seeking diplomatic contact and cultural exchange. The crystalline being's form shifted, patterns of light flowing through its structure in what Elena's anthropological training suggested might be expressions of confusion or distaste. Your species designation shows concerning patterns, aggressive territorial expansion, biological and technological development curves indicating high probability of self-destruction, resource consumption rates exceeding sustainable parameters. With respect, Elena countered, those same patterns have driven us to reach for the stars, to seek out new life and new civilizations. We've overcome our violent past. The Concordat's position is clear, the being interrupted. Primitive species exhibiting your behavioral patterns are to be contained until they either achieve sustainable civilization parameters or follow the statistical probability towards self-termination. A quarantine barrier will be established around your solar system. Attempts to breach it will result in immediate defensive response. The bridge crew watched in stunned silence as massive ships began emerging from fold space around them, their energy signatures dwarfing anything the Pathfinder could generate. Each was easily the size of Earth's moon, their surfaces rippling with technology that defied human understanding. You can't just lock us away, Elena protested, her hands clenching into fists. We have a right to grow, to learn, to be part of the greater community of spacefaring species. Your emotional response proves our analysis correct, the being replied without inflection. Return to your solar system. The quarantine barrier will be completed within 1 orbital period of your world. The Concordat's decision is final. As the hologram faded, Elena saw something in the being's crystalline structure. Not contempt or hatred, but something perhaps worse, complete dismissal. To them, humanity was nothing more than another primitive species to be contained and forgotten. Orders, Captain. Lieutenant Chen asked, his station showing the massive ships moving to surround their vessel in an escort formation that left no doubt about their intentions. Elena stared at the main view screen, watching as more Concordat ships emerged from fold space, carrying components of what would become humanity's prison walls. In that moment, she made a decision that would echo through human history. Plot a course home, Lieutenant, and send a tight-beam quantum transmission to Earth. Tell them. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Tell them we found our purpose. If the galaxy won't accept us as equals, We'll have to prove our worth another way. It's time for Project Prometheus. As the Pathfinder turned back toward Earth, Alina watched the Concordat ships, their crystalline structures gleaming with power and advanced technology. They thought they were containing a primitive, dangerous species. Instead, they were giving humanity something it had lacked since reaching for the stars, a unified purpose. The quarantine barrier would take a year to complete. That gave humanity time. Time to prepare, to adapt, to prove that being primitive didn't mean being helpless. The Concordat had made their decision based on statistics and probability. They were about to learn that humans had a long history of defying both. One more thing, Lieutenant, Alina added as Earth's sun appeared as a distant point of light on their screens. Access the cultural database. I want everything we have on the myth of Prometheus. Sometimes the best way forward is to learn from our oldest stories. The journey home was silent, but it wasn't the silence of defeat. It was the silence of determination, of a species that had just been challenged to prove its worth to a galaxy that had judged them too quickly. Humanity had been dismissed as primitive, unstable, and dangerous. Soon, they would show the Concordat exactly how dangerous primitive humans could be when protecting not just themselves, but an entire galaxy that didn't yet know it needed protection. The Silent Guardians. 20 years after the quarantine barrier's completion, Dr. Maya Rodriguez stood in Earth's deepest quantum observatory, staring at data streams that made her blood run cold. The facility, buried 10 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean, was humanity's response to being caged. If the Concordat wouldn't let them explore outward, they would look deeper into the fabric of space-time itself. "Run the analysis again," she ordered, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display, showing distortions at the edge of known space. Behind her, banks of quantum computers hummed, their hybrid organic digital processors representing humanity's greatest achievement since the quarantine began. "Fourth confirmation complete," reported Dr. James Chen, son of the same Lieutenant Chen who'd served on the Pathfinder. "The void between galaxies isn't empty, Dr. Rodriguez. Something's moving out there, and it's headed toward the Concordat's territory." Maya studied the patterns, her augmented vision processing data streams that would have overwhelmed unmodified human senses. The quarantine had forced humanity to look inward, to push the boundaries of their own biology and technology in ways the Concordat probably never imagined possible. "They won't see it coming," she muttered, more to herself than to James. "Their sensors are all focused on conventional space. They're looking for ships, for energy signatures they understand. This," she gestured at the readings, "this is something else entirely." The Quantum Observatory's main screen filled with the visualization they'd spent months reconstructing. Massive entities, each larger than entire solar systems, moving through the void between galaxies. They weren't ships in any conventional sense. They were more like tears in reality itself, consuming everything in their path. "How long?" James asked, his augmented pupils dilating as he processed the calculations. 5 years, maybe 6 before they reached the first Concordat worlds. Maya pulled up the classified files from Project Prometheus. The initiative Captain Santos had started 2 decades ago. "We've spent 20 years preparing for something, even if we didn't know exactly what. The quantum defense networks, the consciousness uploading research, the bioengineering programs. All of it was building toward this moment." A soft chime announced the arrival of their third team member, Dr. Sarah O'Neill, Earth's leading expert in xenopsychology, emerged from the quantum lift. Her silver hair and aged appearance marked her as one of the few humans who'd chosen to remain completely unmodified, a living reminder of what they once were. "The Council has reviewed your findings," Sarah announced, her Irish accent unchanged after all these years. "They're calling an emergency session. The question isn't whether we warn the Concordat anymore, it's how." Maya turned back to the displays, watching the void entity's slow but inexorable approach. "They quarantined us because they thought we were dangerous and unstable. How do you think they'll react when we tell them we've been watching them? that we've developed technology they can't even detect, and that we've spotted a threat their precious advanced civilization missed completely. They'll think it's a trick, James said, his augmented voice carrying harmonics of frustration, and primitive species trying to manipulate their way out of containment. Sarah stepped closer to the quantum displays, her unmodified eyes squinting at the complex data streams. Then we don't tell them. We show them. Maya raised an eyebrow. The barrier's still in place. Any attempt to breach it. Who said anything about breaching it? Sarah smiled, the expression carrying the weight of 20 years of planning. Project Prometheus wasn't just about developing new technology. It was about proving ourselves worthy of standing alongside the galaxy's civilizations. What better way than by saving them from a threat they don't even know exists? Maya accessed the project files, scrolling through decades of research and development. Quantum tunneling devices that could bypass conventional space, consciousness transfer technology that could bridge organic and digital existence, bioengineered humans capable of surviving in deep space without ships. The Concordat had contained what they saw as a primitive violent species. They never considered that those same primitive traits, humanity's drive to survive, to adapt, to overcome, would lead to innovations their stable, predictable civilization couldn't imagine. "We'll need volunteers," James said, already pulling up personnel files. "People willing to risk everything on a plan that might not even work." "We already have them," Sarah replied. "Every graduate of the Deep Space Program, every consciousness researcher, every quantum physicist, they've all been preparing for this moment, even if they didn't know it. Humanity hasn't just been waiting behind these walls. We've been training." Maya made her decision, entering her command codes into the quantum network. Around the world, hidden facilities began powering up. Ships that didn't look like ships, weapons that didn't look like weapons, and defenses that existed in dimensions the Concordat had never thought to monitor. Humanity's secret guardians were awakening. "Send the call," she ordered, "but keep it quiet. The void entities are watching conventional communications. They've probably been monitoring the Concordat for centuries. We'll use the quantum network, coordinate through the consciousness links. If we're going to save a galaxy that rejected us, we need to do it our way, the primitive way." As alerts went out through the quantum network, Maya thought about the irony of their situation. The Concordat had contained humanity to protect the galaxy from what they saw as a dangerous, unstable species. Instead, they had created exactly what the galaxy needed. A civilization that thought differently, that saw patterns others missed, and that wasn't afraid to break the rules when survival was at stake. 20 years ago, they called us primitive," Sarah said, watching as responses began flowing in from facilities around the world. "They're about to learn that primitive doesn't mean helpless. Sometimes it just means being willing to do what the advanced civilizations won't." The quantum observatory hummed with increasing power as humanity's hidden preparations began to bear fruit. In the darkness beneath the Pacific, a species that had been caged and dismissed as dangerous was preparing to prove that sometimes the most primitive solution was exactly what an advanced civilization needed to survive. When shadows strike, the Concordat's outer colony of Lyra Prime vanished on a perfectly normal day. One moment, the crystalline spires of their most advanced research outpost sparkled in the light of 3 suns. The next, there was nothing. Not destruction, not ruins, but complete absence. 40 million sentient beings simply ceased to exist. High Counselor Venra watched the sensor recordings for the 100th time, his crystalline form darkening with distress. The loss of Lyra Prime was just the beginning. 3 more colonies had vanished in the past month, each disappearance more inexplicable than the last. "Our analysis remains incomplete," announced First Scientist Kelth, her form shifting in patterns that indicated deep concern. "The entities appear to operate on principles that defy our understanding of physics. Our most advanced sensors detect nothing until the moment of consumption." The emergency council chamber of the Concordat's capital world was filled with the galaxy's most advanced beings, their crystalline and energy forms humming with barely contained fear. They had ruled space for 10,000 years, their technology so advanced it bordered on magical. Yet now they faced something that made all of that power seem meaningless. The quarantine barriers, someone suggested. We could adapt them, create a defense. A new alert silenced the discussion. On the massive quantum displays surrounding the chamber, another colony vanished. This time, their sensors caught something. A brief glimpse of what looked like a tear in the fabric of reality itself, a darkness deeper than the void between galaxies. They're learning, Venra realized, his voice carrying harmonics of horror. Each attack teaches them how to bypass our defenses more efficiently. Deep within the quantum networks that connected Concordat worlds, something stirred. Undetected by their advanced but conventional sensors, streams of data began flowing through frequencies they had never thought to monitor. Humanity had been watching, waiting, and preparing. Inside her quantum-enhanced consciousness, Maya Rodriguez guided her team through the spaces between conventional reality. They weren't using ships. Ships could be detected, tracked, destroyed. Instead, they had become something else, their enhanced bodies and transferred consciousness, allowing them to exist in the same quasi-dimensional space as the void entities. Primary target approaching Concordat core world Centauri. James Chen's thoughts echoed through their quantum link. Their defensive grid is useless. They're still trying to fight this like a conventional war. Maya watched through senses that her original human form could never have comprehended. The void entity was massive, its true form extending through dimensions the Concordat couldn't even perceive. Their mighty ships, each the size of a moon, might as well have been insects trying to fight a hurricane. Sarah, are you in position? Maya sent through their link. Quantum anchors placed around the Centauri system. Sarah's response came instantly. Her consciousness spread across a network of human-designed quantum devices that had been secretly positioned over the past 5 years. But Maya, there's something you need to see. Through their shared perception, Maya understood immediately. The void entities weren't just consuming worlds. They were consuming possibility itself. Each attack erased not just the present, but all potential futures of their targets. The Concordat, for all their advanced technology, had built their civilization on predictability and stability. They couldn't comprehend, let alone fight, something that attacked causality itself. This is why they never saw us coming, Maya realized. Their sensors, their predictions, their whole civilization is based on linear progression. But humans, we've always lived in chaos. Our strength isn't in stability. It's in adaptation. The void entity began its approach to Centauri, reality starting to warp around its edges. In the Concordat's emergency chamber, alarms blared as their sensors finally detected what they thought was the threat's approach. Their mighty ships moved to intercept, weapons powerful enough to shatter planets charging for battle. Now, Maya commanded. Across the Centauri system, humanity's quantum anchors activated. They didn't try to destroy the void entity. Destruction was impossible against something that existed partially outside reality. Instead, they did something the Concordat would never have considered. They introduced chaos. The quantum anchors didn't create barriers or weapons. They created possibility. Endless streams of it, flooding local space-time with so many potential futures that the void entity's grip on reality began to slip. It was like trying to erase a story that was being rewritten faster than it could be destroyed. In the Concordat chamber, the assembled leaders watched in astonishment as their sensors registered the impossible. The void entity wasn't being destroyed. It was being overwhelmed, drowning in a sea of quantum possibilities that their instruments could barely detect. What is this? Venra demanded, his crystalline form resonating with confusion and hope. Where is this power coming from? Through their quantum link, Maya smiled. Send the signal, she told her team. It's time to properly introduce ourselves to the galaxy. In the space above Centauri, reality rippled. Human forms emerged from the quantum field, their enhanced bodies glowing with the same energy they had used to drive back the void entity. They had found a way to fight an enemy that attacked possibility itself, by becoming creatures of pure potential, embracing the chaos that the Concordat had spent millennia trying to eliminate. As Maya's consciousness reformed into a partially physical state, she opened a channel to the Concordat chamber. Her voice, carried through frequencies they had never thought to monitor, echoed through their emergency session. "This is Dr. Maya Rodriguez of Earth. We thought you might need some help from a primitive species that still remembers how to adapt." The silence that followed was broken only by the quantum hum of humanity's devices, standing guard against an enemy that the most advanced civilization in the galaxy hadn't even been able to fight. The tables had turned, and the galaxy's future now rested in the hands of those who had been locked away as too dangerous to join it. The choice we made. The Concordat's emergency chamber had never seen such chaos. Crystalline beings shifted through various states of agitation, their forms flickering between solid and energy as they struggled to process what they had witnessed. High Counselor Venera faced the holographic projection of Dr. Maya Rodriguez, her partially quantum form a stark reminder of how far humanity had evolved during their isolation. "You've been watching us," Venera said, his voice carrying harmonics of accusation and fear. "All these years, while we thought you were safely contained." "We prefer to think of it as preparing," Maya replied, her form shifting between physical and quantum states. "Your quarantine forced us to look inward, to push the boundaries of what was possible. We saw the void entities coming 5 years ago, but we knew you wouldn't believe us if we simply told you." First Scientist Kelf moved forward, her crystalline structure analyzing Maya's quantum signature with obvious fascination. "What you've done should be impossible. The merger of organic consciousness with quantum states, the ability to exist partially outside conventional spacetime, these violate fundamental laws of physics." James Chen's consciousness linked into the chamber, his form materializing beside Maya. "That's your problem right there. You're so convinced you understand the fundamental laws that you never thought to question them. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our willingness to be wrong." The chamber erupted in debate, countless voices arguing in frequencies that spanned the electromagnetic spectrum. Maya watched through her enhanced senses as the Concordat's leadership faced a choice that would define their civilization's future. "You claim to offer help," a senior council member challenged, "but how can we trust a species that has spent 20 years deceiving us? For all we know, these void entities could be your creation, a ploy to force us to accept you into the galactic community." Sarah O'Neill's consciousness joined the link, her unmodified human appearance a deliberate choice. "If we wanted to force our way in, we could have done it years ago. Your quarantine barrier. We found ways around it within the first 5 years. But we chose to stay, to prepare, to prove ourselves through actions rather than demands." Through the quantum network, Maya shared the data they had gathered over the years, the void entities' movements through other galaxies, the pattern of consumption that had been going on for millions of years, the civilizations that had fallen because they tried to fight an enemy they couldn't understand. "The void entities aren't just destroying worlds," Maya explained, her consciousness expanding to interface directly with the Concordat's quantum systems. "They're consuming possibility itself. Every civilization they've encountered tried to fight them with conventional weapons, with predictable strategies. But you can't fight chaos with order. And you believe your primitive methods are the answer?" Venera asked, but the dismissive harmonics in his voice had been replaced by something else. "Hope. We believe that survival requires adaptation," Maya replied. "Humanity's history is filled with moments where we faced extinction. We survived not because we were the strongest or the most advanced, but because we were willing to change, to try the impossible, to embrace chaos when order failed." A new alert pierced the chamber. 3 more void entities had appeared at the edge of Concordat space. Their massive forms began tearing through reality itself, consuming not just matter and energy, but the very possibility of existence. "We don't have time for debate," James announced, his quantum form pulsing with urgency. "The void entities are learning, adapting to your defenses faster than you can create them. You have a choice to make. Accept help from the primitive species you once locked away, or watch your civilization be erased from every possible timeline." Venra's crystalline form shifted through patterns of deep thought, consulting with the quantum consciousness of the Concordat's collective leadership. Maya waited, knowing that this moment would define not just humanity's future, but the galaxy's. "The quarantine was meant to protect the galaxy from your unstable nature," Venra finally said, his form settling into a pattern of resolution. "We never considered that your instability, your chaos, might be exactly what the galaxy needs." Through their quantum link, Sarah smiled. "Sometimes the best solutions come from the most unexpected places. We're not asking you to trust us blindly. We're asking you to work with us. Combine your advanced technology with our adaptability. Stand with us, not as superiors and primitives, but as equals facing a common threat." The chamber fell silent as Venra approached Maya's holographic form. His crystalline structure resonated at frequencies that carried both authority and humility. "By the power vested in me by the Galactic Concordat, I hereby formally request humanity's assistance in defending our civilization against the void entities. The quarantine is lifted, effective immediately." Maya's consciousness expanded, sharing the moment with her team across the quantum network. 20 years of preparation, of secret development and patient waiting, had led to this moment. But this wasn't just about proving humanity's worth. It was about saving a galaxy that had rejected them. "We accept," Maya declared, her form solidifying into a more conventional appearance. "But understand this, we're not the same primitive species you quarantined 20 years ago. We've evolved, adapted, become something new. The question is, can your civilization do the same? Because fighting these entities will require all of us to change in ways we can't predict." As if in response to her words, the void entities' attack on the outer systems intensified. Reality itself began to warp and tear as they consumed not just worlds, but the very possibility of their existence. "Teach us," Venra said, his voice carrying the weight of 10,000 years of civilization. "Show us how primitives fight against impossible odds." Maya's team began transmitting data through the quantum network, sharing the technologies and techniques they had developed in secret. The Concordat was about to learn that sometimes the most advanced solution was to embrace their primitive roots, to remember how to adapt, to change, and to fight with everything they had, even when victory seemed impossible. "Beyond the stars we rise." The void between galaxies churned with impossible energies as humanity and the Concordat made their final stand. Maya Rodriguez's consciousness stretched across quantum space, coordinating the combined fleet's movements. The sight before them defied conventional description. Hundreds of void entities, each large enough to swallow solar systems, advancing through tiers in reality itself. Quantum anchors holding at 60%. James Chen's voice echoed through the shared consciousness network that now linked human and Concordat forces. "The entities are adapting faster than we can generate new possibilities." The Concordat's massive ships, now modified with human quantum technology, created a defensive line that spanned light years. Their crystalline crews had learned to embrace chaos in ways that would have been unthinkable months ago, their rigid thinking transformed by desperation and humanity's influence. "Concordat Fleet Gamma reports breakthrough in Sector 7, Venra announced, his consciousness linked directly to the human network. "The void entities are starting to predict our quantum probability patterns." Maya watched through senses that transcended normal spacetime as the void entities pressed their attack. The combined fleet's strategy had worked initially, flooding space with quantum possibilities, making reality itself too chaotic for the entities to consume. But now, they were adapting, learning to devour chaos itself. "They're not just consuming possibility," Sarah O'Neill's thoughts carried revelation. "They're consuming our patterns of adaptation. Everything we try, they learn to counter." Through their shared consciousness, Maya felt the fear rippling through both human and Concordat forces. They had fought brilliantly, combining humanity's adaptability with the Concordat's advanced technology. But it wasn't enough. The void entities were learning, evolving, becoming something even chaos couldn't defeat. Then she understood. Everyone, listen. Maya's consciousness expanded to encompass the entire network. We've been fighting them wrong. We thought the answer was chaos, but we're still trying to control it. We need to let go completely. Explain, Venra demanded, his crystalline form resonating with both fear and hope. The void entities consume patterns. Any patterns, even chaotic ones. But what happens if there are no patterns at all? What if instead of trying to fight them, we simply stop? Understanding rippled through the network as Maya shared her plan. It was insane, primitive, and precisely what they needed. The Concordat's logical minds recoiled at first, but their months of working with humans had taught them to trust in impossible solutions. All ships, all beings, Maya broadcast. Shut down your quantum anchors. Deactivate your probability generators. Stop trying to fight. This is madness. A Concordat commander protested. If we stop fighting, they'll consume everything. No, Sarah's voice carried certainty. They won't consume us. They can't. Because we won't be anywhere. We won't be fighting. We won't be running. We won't be generating new possibilities. We'll simply be. One by one, the quantum anchors fell silent. The probability generators powering the fleet's weapons went dark. Billions of consciousnesses, both human and Concordat, linked together in the quantum network, doing the hardest thing any living being can do. Choosing to simply exist, without resistance, without pattern, without fear. The void entities' advance slowed, then stopped. For the first time since they had emerged from between galaxies, they faced something they couldn't consume. A complete absence of pattern, even chaotic ones. The combined fleet hung in space, their minds linked but quiet, offering no resistance, no adaptation, no change to devour. They're trying to find something to consume, James observed through the network, his thoughts barely a whisper. But we're not giving them anything. No pattern, no possibility, no future or past to devour. Just the eternal now. The void entities writhed in space, their massive forms twisting as they encountered something they had never faced in all their eons of consumption. Living beings who chose to simply be, offering nothing to devour, nothing to learn from, nothing to adapt to. Hours passed in that timeless state. Then, slowly, the void entities began to retreat. Without patterns to consume, without chaos to devour, they had no purpose, no way to continue their existence. One by one, they withdrew back into the space between galaxies, leaving reality intact behind them. As the last entity vanished, consciousness stirred again in the quantum network. Maya felt the combined thoughts of humanity and the Concordat beginning to process what had happened. We won. Venra's thoughts carried astonishment. By doing nothing. Not nothing, Maya corrected. We won by being something they couldn't understand. Living beings choosing to exist without pattern or purpose. It's the most primitive state of all, and the one thing their advanced consumption couldn't handle. The quantum network hummed with new understanding as both humanity and the Concordat recognized the profound truth they had discovered. The most advanced civilizations in the galaxy had survived not through technology or adaptation, but by remembering how to be truly primitive, existing without pattern or purpose, in perfect harmony with the chaos of reality itself. The quarantine ends today, Venra announced, his consciousness resonating through the network. But more than that, the Concordat itself must change. We thought we were containing a primitive species for the galaxy's safety. Instead, you taught us that being primitive, being truly fundamentally alive, is the greatest defense against the void. Maya felt the barriers between human and Concordat consciousness dissolving, not through technology or force, but through shared understanding. They had faced extinction and survived not by fighting, but by remembering the most basic truth of existence. Sometimes, the most advanced thing a civilization can do is remember how to be primitive. As the combined fleet began its journey home, Maya watched the void between galaxies through her quantum senses. The void entities were gone, but she knew they weren't destroyed. They would return one day, seeking new patterns to consume. But when they did, they would find something they couldn't devour. A galaxy that had learned to embrace both its highest technology and its most primitive nature, finding strength in the balance between the two. The stars seemed brighter somehow as humanity and the Concordat flew together through space that had so recently been torn by impossible battles. They had won not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but by remembering something every primitive species knows in its bones. Sometimes, the key to survival is simply to be, without pattern or purpose, one with the chaos of existence itself.